thank you. Hopefully, I'm audible. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks to Dr. Maiti and other people for the invitation. So, can I share my slide?
So Shubhan sir, you're muted. So you should.
Yeah. So till then, let me introduce our speaker, Dr. Chandra Sekhar Bahinipati, Associate Professor from Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Indian Institute of Technology. And the area of interest of sir is economics of climate change, environmental economics, natural resources management, impact evaluation, and development economics. Sir has completed his PhD in economics from Madras Institute of Development Studies, Chennai. Sir also published around 100 articles and chapters and books in reputed international journals and publishing agencies. Sir has published more articles, different articles, journals like Environmental Development, Ecology, Economy and Society, Nature, Climate Change, Journal of the Asia Pacific Economy, Environment and Urbanization Asia, and the different reputed journals that has published. Sir has yeah. So I'm requesting sir to kindly deliver the lecture. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So hopefully the slide is visible.
Yes, sir, visible. Could you please make it in the slide mode, sir?
I'm trying to make it. Now it's okay?
Yeah, now fine, absolutely.
Suppose I move to second slide, it is visible?
Yeah, visible, sir.
So thanks for the invitation. So I'm going to talk about, as Dr. Maith has mentioned, climate smart agriculture, adoption, and farmers' well-being. So I'm going to talk about nowadays, you might have heard about that climate smart agriculture, impacts of climate change on agriculture, how farmers are adapting to the agriculture, because in India, there are half of the rural households are still depending on the agriculture, and the smallholder farmers is around more than 85% of the smallholder farmers. Those of them having the less than 2 hectares of agricultural land. So it's their livelihood is much vulnerable because of compounding risk, and both the idiosyncratic and the covariate risk are affecting their livelihood. So climate change, one among them, is a major effect on their livelihood. So therefore, this is being suggested by policymakers, researchers, or international policy papers that, okay, farmers should adopt the climate smart agriculture practices. Now the question is that, okay, what is the issue with the adoption? Okay, why the farmers are not adopting the climate smart agriculture, whether it has any positive benefits on their livelihood. So taking the evidences from different states in India, based on my own studies in the last 4 or 5 years, maybe more than 5 years, whatever I've conducted the study across the different states in India. So I'm going to present the overview of that. What is the climate smart agriculture, how the adoption practices, so the farmers are adopting climate smart agriculture, how it affects the well-being, and which basically we have used various econometric techniques to do that, including the impact evaluation methods. So as I mentioned, so I'll start with a few introduction with based on my systematic review of literature, which is published in 2021 and 22. Then I'll basically give you some evidences about the adoption of climate smart practices based on the NSSO 2013 and 2019 and ISD. NSSO, you might be knowing the National Sample Survey Office survey in 2013. Basically, it's a farmer survey. Okay, the agricultural household survey or situation assessment survey for the farmers in 2013 as of the 2019. And Indian Human Development Survey 2011-12. Now the recent survey has happened in 2023. It's yet to be the data yet to be available online for us to use. And then based on the household survey, I'd like to thank Indian Council of Social Science Research, South Asian Network for Development and Environmental Economics, my co-authors, as well as the PhD students. Those of them are collaborated with me for this research papers. So what I'll do, I'll start with my 2 papers. So one paper which is published in the Nature Journal as a scientific reports, which is basically talking about the sustainable transition for Indian agriculture. Anyway, I'm not talking on much on the sustainability side of it today. And second is basically the systematic review paper. So if you look at the overall, the literature suggests that climate change, which leads to climate variability, that fluctuations in the rainfall and temperature, and extreme event, the cyclone, flood, or the drought, which is basically increasing the number of cyclones, floods, the droughts, or the variability of the rainfall and temperature, or the extreme rainfall. The number and frequency have been increasing over the years, and that leads to many studies. If you look at from 1995 onwards, there could be few papers in the last 2 decades, even last 10 years, there could be hundreds of studies in India for the different states, different crops, from the different background, discipline, different methodology. But the crux of the story is that there's a negative impact on the yield loss. If you take all the studies together, you'll find that, none of them telling that, there's a positive impact, there's a negative impact. So few studies, I'm just quoting the few studies have been telling that, may decline because they say that, suppose 1 degree rise in temperature, so how much will be impact on the different crops? Or 2 degree rise in temperature, what will be the impact? So I'm just putting that there could be 4 to 8% decline. It may go up to 25%. And there's another paper which I've not mentioned here that says that during the 1970 to 2010, if drought could not have come, our agricultural productivity could have increased 20% higher than what basically we have. So it has some impact on your food and nutritional securities. And volatility of the farmer's income. Now the question is that, suppose you remember 4 or 5 years before, our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi talked about that, we should double the farmer's income. So given all this compounding risk, so now the question is that whether it's possible to double the farmer's income. Suppose you want to double the farmer's income, the only way that, you should upscale or adopt the climate smart agriculture practices. And none of the literature, some of you might take it, there are very few literature is basically talking on that, let's talk about the impacts of climate change on agriculture and basically effect on the agricultural households. But what about the other households? Because of the supply shock, there could be a possibility of food crisis and food inflation, which may affect the basket, the consumption baskets of all the households in a country. Those are particularly not from the agricultural households like me. So my income is not depending on agriculture, but if there's a food inflation, definitely it will affect my consumption basket. So, but coming to the farmers, so farmers' livelihood in the precarious condition, and small and marginal farmers, their livelihood already in the precarious condition, and because of the climate smart and the climate change lands, additional risk on them. And more than half of the farmers, when there's a study, 2013 NSS, so there's a question that whether you would like to continue the farming. More than half of the farmers prefer to change the profession. So that's the issue to be think of that farmers are not interested to pursue the agriculture. It has some effect on the sustainable development, various sustainable development goals. See, look at this diagram, which basically I'm going to explain to you, is based on the NSS show 2019. So here, what basically we have compared, we have divided the entire sample, 58,000 households that basically the NSS survey of the 77th round. So we have divided into the 4 quartile based on the gross value added, gross value output. So you see that first quartile and the second quartiles, to some extent third quartile, basically consisting of small and marginal farmers, smallholders. Basically consisting of the smallholders. Mostly in the first and 2 quartiles, completely the smallholder farmers. Those are having the land holding less than 2 hectares. You see that when we compare their input value as the output values, look at the past. The output value median, that the black line, and the input value median is higher than the output value. See, hardly the farmers in the first quartile, hardly they get any benefit out of the agriculture, even they're in the loss. If you look at the second quartile, is slightly higher. but still they're not getting much benefits. And third quartile is little bit higher than the input value. If we look at the fourth quartile, it's quite a visible higher than the first quartile. Input value, the output value is visible is higher, the median value is higher. So question is that, so who is actually benefiting from the agriculture? It seems that smallholder farmers, okay, are not getting benefit from the agriculture. So it makes a question mark on doubling farmers' income, whether you can double the farmers' income. So look at this. So look at the C, figure C, not the figure A and B. I just explained the figure C. Ratio of the output, ratio of the value of output in. Okay, if you look at the, we have divided the entire sample into 10 decile, okay, 10 groups. So if we look at the first decile and say up to the fifth decile, okay, fourth decile, it just touches one, means you're basically, you're actually lost. Your output value is higher than the input. Okay, so basically your input value is higher than the output. So, but if you look at the farmers in the 10th decile, okay, so where basically it is 2. So output value is 2 times higher than the input value. So basically those farmers in the 10th decile, they're basically doubling the farmers, doubling their income at present. If we look at the farmers up to the 5th decile are almost close to the 1. And the farmers in the 1 and 2, they're actually in the loser side. Okay, it seems that the half of the farmers are basically not getting benefit out of the agriculture. So that's the question to be think of it. Okay, why and how to providing them sustainable livelihood opportunities, and that can minimize the volatility in agricultural income. Okay, the first thing that, okay, the upscaling of the climate smart agriculture practices. Okay, the IPCC, recent IPCC report says that, okay, what you mean by the climate smart agriculture practices is basically promote the agriculture strategies that address major challenges in climate change and food security. But FAO 2013 defines it as increasing farm productivity, income, enhance the resilience of livelihood and ecosystem, at the same time reducing and removing greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, and there are various studies, various literature also found that suppose you adopt climate smart agriculture practices or adaptation in agriculture, because last maybe last 10 years we have been talking about the climate smart agriculture practices. Earlier people used to talk about the adaptation. Okay, it says that adaptation basically reduces 30% to 100%. Some literature say that it basically reduces, increases, okay, productivity by 7 to 15%. Our own study or some of the studies have said that, okay, farmland adaptation options has some positive impact. In recent paper by Ajaz Satru also show that the climate smart adaptation practices is a SAM framework with social accounting matrix. So it basically enhances productivity, adaptation, and mitigation following the FAO framework. So when it comes to the adaptation, there's 3 things in the adaptation. One is the incremental, one is the incremental, then another is the transformative adaptation measures. Okay, incremental adaptation measures is basically low intensity impact, small scale, short term, and standard individual cost and individual benefits and support scoping. So incremental, if we look at the diagram, you'll see that those guys are taking the incremental adaptation measures. So it is mentioned, okay, what are the adaptation measures? It's called the incremental, like crop diversification. You just plant varieties of crops you plant, or change the planting times based on the rainfall and water, nutrient, and canopy management. And there's a transformation, basically it's a systematic change. It's a crop diversification. So there's a systematic change. Okay, high intensity impact, large scale, and long-term innovating individual and collective cost, individual and collective benefits, and support resilience. So you see that diagram, the transformation adaptation gives the more benefit in comparison to the incremental adaptation measures. If you think of that, okay, incremental adaptation measures are basically more So if we look at that, okay, what are the adaptation measures we are taking now? If we divide them incremental, transformative, and systemic adaptation measures, you will find that most of the adaptation measures we are taking now are the incremental or systematic. So far, we have not taken much with respect to the transformative adaptation measures because, as I mentioned, it needs a large cost. And if you look at the IPCC reports, I forgot to put that. Basically, we start comparing the IPCC reports from the 2001. The third assessment report, fourth assessment report in 2007, fifth assessment report in 2014, and now the sixth assessment report in 2022. Which now that this 3 to 6 the 4 IPCC reports, because on these IPCC reports there is a separate chapter called impasse, vulnerability, and adaptation to climate change. So earlier there was not these chapters were there. So now we are basically looking at, so over the years, to what extent the studies from the South Asia is reported, and to what extent the South Asian issues are being reported in these studies over the years. That basically we're now looking at. So basically, so what I've done here, when I was doing a systematic review by taking the data, I was doing it in 2020. That's why I've taken the year data till 2018. The papers published 2018. You'll see that with respect to India. So here basically, I was trying to understand that, okay, we are talking about the agricultural adaptation, that papers in Andhra, that papers in Karnataka, that papers in Northeast. I was trying to visualize it in a paper that, okay, where are the studies are there and which location we have studies and which location we don't have studies, and which are the adaptation measures we have already studied and which are, we don't have any idea about these adaptation measures. So these are basically, you'll see that state by they're classified. You'll see that some of the states like Odisha, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh have more than 5 studies, and some states have only single studies. We don't know. And similarly, we have divided the adaptation measures into the 5 categories: farm management and technology, diversification on and beyond the farm financial management, government supported generic and disaster risk reduction measures, knowledge management network, and civil society. You see that most of the studies, 91% of the studies, are focusing on the farm management technology. There are less studies, which are around 20 to 30% of the generic government support or generic adaptation measures, or the knowledge management, how the civil society helps the farmers to adapt, and around 40% talking about the farm financial management, which is also important. That, okay, how farmers manage the finance. Okay, so around 50% talks about the diversification of the livelihood beyond the farm, but farm level adaptation was largely studied. Means we need to study on other adaptation measures also. So this basically talked about the state wise, how many studies are there. Okay, so here when it comes to the farm management technology, I was dividing them with respect to the adaptation measures. You'll see that, okay, although we are living in the mostly the semi-arid and arid region, half of the region, if you look at the Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra, Tamil Nadu is mostly the semi-arid regions. So where the water is scarce, in Haryana, Punjab, the scarcity of water scarcity is the bigger issue. That's why most of the literature have taken water management as one of the adaptations, which obviously, because water is a major crisis. And the crop choice as a mostly chosen adaptation measures among the farm level adaptation measures, water management, crop choice. And I similarly have mentioned about the different adaptation measures which so far we have studied. And you will see that the less studied on the basically with respect to the crop insurance, okay, borrowing from informal institutions, financial institutions. So migration, so there are very less number of studies basically in comparison to the studies. So then basically I was looking at, okay, as some of you might be doing econometrics, I was looking at, okay, what are the determinants of the adaptation measures? Taking all the quantitative papers, okay, all the quantitative papers published in 2019. So, but I've seen that although we talk about the climate change and extreme event led to adaptation measures, but less studies have taken this as one of the variable, independent variable to study that, okay, these adaptation measures the farmers have taken because of the climate change or the extreme events. And very latest paper is talking about the risk and such. It is a compounding risk. It's not only the climate change that are driving the farmers to behave differently, because now we have another paper recently have published, we have found that in Tamil Nadu, the Kaveri Delta, the farmers undertaking the choice of the basically rice cultivation is not only depend on the climate change, it also depend on the market. In market, which kind of rice variety they can sell in the market where they get profit. So that basically drive the choice rather than the climate change. So we have to also think of the other risk and sorts. And you see that risk attitude, behavior, and information was less studied, and development policy, other so basically these are the variables are more lessly included in our analysis. So mostly the people used to do that agricultural characteristics of the households and some characteristics of mostly the agricultural characteristics of the households. Okay, basically the socio-economic characteristics of household they consider, and they run the regression and do that. Okay, I see this is very important for me. Okay, which I can say you within a 2 minutes. Like, okay, what I've done, taking all these studies. When I look at, okay, some combined, suppose in Andhra Pradesh, there's 10 studies. I combine from each study, okay, how many number of villages they surveyed. Okay, number of villages surveyed, how many households they have surveyed. Okay, then I was thinking that, okay, combining all these studies, whether we can say something about the state. Okay, you'll see that Bihar, there are 165 villages studied, and there are a survey, if you look at household survey 2,700. Maharashtra is basically 6,000, close to 7,000. Odisha is 4,000 survey. Okay, but some of the states you'll see that there's a less than 1,000 household survey. Okay, now the question is that given this information is available to us, okay, based on the different studies, whether based on these studies, whether we can say something about the state, I feel no. So that's why I suggest there, since the NSS is doing the farmers situation assessment survey and doing the survey of 40,000 households in India. Okay, if you sum everything, it will be could be around 15,000 households in India. So since the NSS is doing 40 years, now it's a 50,000 households, more than 50,000 households survey. So why not the NSS so include the climate smart agriculture module is another module in the survey, so that we can get the information about what is happening in India. Okay, so now let me come back to you different kinds of adaptation measures. Okay, so based on the NSSO data, so what basically you find out, see, crop insurance is one of the adaptation measures we consider in the case of the agriculture, is basically manages risk, it basically reduces the impacts on the farmers, and also help the farmers to smoothen their income as well as the consumption. Okay, if you look at the 2013 as a 2019 NSSO data is close to it can be a representative of the entire country. You see that hardly less than 10% of the farmers have adopted the crop insurance, even after 50 years, because it started in 1972. Even after 50 years, hardly 10% of farmers adopted crop insurance. And if you remember 2015 or 16, there is we are talking about the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So 2019 means basically July, December 2018, and Rabi 2019 means it's January, March, April 2019. See, around 5-6% of the total surveyed farmers have adopted the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. It seems that so farmers are not adopting the crop insurance scheme, although it has some benefit to the farmers, which I'm going to show you. Okay, and so we mapped across the states. So we are yet to publish our papers. It's on the way. So you'll see that the rate where basically less than 5% of the farmers, North India and some part of the northeastern part of India, in Karnataka and Kerala, there are 2013 is less. In 2019, similar the northern part of India and the northeastern part of India has less than 5% of farmers adopted crop insurance. Okay, the only states where basically it was 20 to 40% in 2019. It was basically Andhra Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, and 15 to 20% was Maharashtra and Telangana. Okay, other states basically either 10% or 10 to 15% or less, and in some states are less than 5%. So it seems that the farmers are not adopting the crop insurance. Okay, this is the Rabi crops. So you see that basically we have published a paper in 2013. So here basically we have used the difference in difference method and looking at that, okay, taking the ISTS data set for 2 years, 2005, 6, and another 2011, 12. And so we are looking at that, okay, there's a survey in the 2011-12 survey. They asked a question that, okay, whether you have adopted crop insurance in the last 5 years. So here we have used the difference in difference techniques, basically a difference in their consumption expenditure, and with respect to the crop insurance adoption, we found that those guys have adopted crop insurance. They're having the positive effect on their well-being. So given that positive effect on their well-being, so why farmers are not adopting the crop insurance? That's a question to be investigated. Okay, and this I'll skip it given the time. And crop, how much time do I have? Another 10 minutes?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you can continue, sir, up to 1 hour like that. So 1 and 1 15 minutes. You can continue. Later, sir, we will take a question from the students and the participants who are outside waiting. So
Okay.
based on that, we'll just discuss. Yes, sir.
Okay. Then I can explain this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we have done in another study, taking the NSSO 2019. Okay, we are trying to, because some of the studies have mentioned that okay, it has impact on the farmer's well-being. So then we thought, okay, who is actually getting benefited? Whether the small and marginal farmers are getting benefited or the large farmers are getting benefited. So who is actually getting the benefited out of the crop insurance? So what we have done, we have used the propensity score matching method, because here what we have done, okay, there are divided the entire sample into landless, marginal, small, and medium and large. We merge the medium and large because there are very less households in medium and large. That's why we merge it. And looking at it, okay, we found, okay, this, as you know, that hardly 10%, less than 10% farmers are adopting the crop insurance. Suppose there's 1,000 farmers, means the only 100 farmers adopted crop insurance, and 900 will be your basically control group. So basically, we're not considering the entire 900 as control group. We basically match the who could be our potential control group out of this 900. So after doing that matching, so then we have done that matching using the nearest neighborhood matching, radius matching, and the kernel matching. And then basically we calculate the average treatment effect. You see that the left side of the table, which basically says that what is impact. Okay, you see that, okay, we see that total input expenditure, where there's a star mark. Okay, that's basically a significant, there's very significant difference. So it's ATT means average average treatment effect. And so you see the total input expenditure, there's something around, there's a positive effect. And in case of kernel matching, we get the total value production as well the total input expenditure. And when we're looking at the land holding wise, you'll see that marginal and small farmers in most of the cases are landless, marginal, small farmers, and most of the cases are have the positive impact, okay, with respect to the total value of production and the input expenditure in comparison to medium and large farmers. It seems that so the smallholder farmers are getting much benefit from the insurance, crop insurance, than the large farmers. Okay, we're ready to publish this paper. Okay, then let me come to the crop diversification. Okay, the crop diversity is considered another adaptation measures. If you look at 2013, around 51% of farmers cultivating single crops in India. But means close to 50% were cultivating more than one crop. That's a crop diversity, because in 2019, only 61% farmers are cultivated single crop. Means 40% are cultivating more than one crop. Means that crop percentage farmers practice crop diversification has declined by 10% from 2013 to 19. It means that farmers are not going for the crop diversification. Farmers are basically going for the monocropping. When we basically were suggesting crop diversification is a better risk management strategy and one of the climate smart agriculture practices. Okay, so then basically we have divided the sum state by we have calculated. You will see that except the few states like Meghalaya, Kerala, and some states like Punjab in 2013 was 83% declined to 71%. You see the most of the state in comparison to 2013 and 2009 is significantly declined, except some northeastern states. Okay, except the northeastern states. So they are basically declines. So then basically in one of our papers yet to be published, so basically we're looking at the micro irrigation. So you'll see that okay, micro irrigation is considered another kind of water intensive measures, water saving technologies, that because if we use that, it basically saves water. So one of the after the our Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji assumed the office in Delhi in 2014. Immediately they started called Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. The objective was that okay, to promote the micro irrigation technologies, that's basically drip and sprinkler irrigation methods across the semi-arid region, arid region, so that it can stabilize the use of the groundwater. Because in most part of the India, basically western part of the India, even northern part in the Punjab and Haryana. So basically there's a heavy depletion of the ground, even Karnataka also. Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Punjab. So it's heavily depletion of the groundwater. So the idea is to promote the micro irrigation technology. The farmers should adopt the micro irrigation technologies so that what will happen, that it may stabilize the groundwater. You see that. Okay, the left side of the figure, state-wise percentage under the micro irrigation. You'll see that, like Rajasthan, Gujarat, Karnataka, and Madhya Pradesh, okay, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh. In some these few states, the 5-7 states, you'll see that micro irrigation adoption will be 70%, and remaining entire India will be less than 30%. I guess it is because of the, if you match that with the groundwater, you see that in those states, the groundwater over that basically calculated as SGW, stage of groundwater development, that more than 100%. That basically groundwater extraction is high, and groundwater depletion rate is high, and this state, that's why the adoption rate is high. The middle figure says that micro coverage at percentage of net zone area. You'll see that except Andhra Pradesh, that's basically the 32%. Other states, it was basically less than 20%. Those major states. Okay, in Rajasthan, it's 11.6% of the net zone area by 2020. Okay, and area added during 2015 to 22. I was looking at that because I was looking at okay, after the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So how many new farmers have adopted the micro irrigation? See that these are the states, the few states which I mentioned, the more number of farmers have adopted the micro irrigation. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about these papers now, which was published in 2019, another one published in 2024. So here what basically we have done, we have taken the case study as the Odisha, as the one district called Western Odisha, and the district is Balangir. So there's a program called Western Odisha Rural Livelihood Program, which is basically implemented by the DFID UK during 2002 to 2010. The major objective is to basically enhance the status of the livelihood of the farmers, because these are the drought-prone area. The Western Odisha is one of the drought-prone regions. So the idea is to improve the livelihood or income of those farmers based on the only program. So what basically we are looking at there, based on a survey of 800 households. For this study, we have taken only 549 households. Those are basically depend on the agriculture. So what basically here we consider agricultural adaptation, that basically they take it as a field control dam, drought tolerant varieties, and crop diversification. We have taken that as a kind of adaptation measures. So we are trying to see that whether those farmers have undertaken these adaptation measures have any positive impact on their income. So we have adopted a approach that's basically called as the endogenous switching regression. It addressed two things. One is the endogeneity bias, and there is a sample selection bias. It basically address the two things. And it's a two-stage framework. First stage is a selection model. The risk aversive farmers also choose to adopt if it generates a net benefit and factors influence the farmers to adopt. And second stage is basically calculate about the adaptation options. So if we look at the column 2, column 5, and column 8, so these basically, I have taken many other variables. I've just put the variables which are basically most important. Okay, so first we calculate whether the only program, those are part of the only program, has any positive impact. AG adopt means they're undertaking adaptation measures. Okay, then you have HH adopt means households, those are adopted. HHNA adopt means households, those are not adopted. So we have calculated the net revenue and value of production per hectare, and so it's basically calculated. So what we have done here, so basically if we think of that, okay, you have two observed variables that basically the column A, that's basically observed because those are the adopted farm households, they have adopted. So what benefit they got? Okay, and B is basically observed. The basically non-adopted farm households that they have not adopted. So what basically the yield or income or net revenue they got. And C and D are basically hypothetical, the counterfactual. Suppose the adopted farm households could not have adopted. What could have been there in a net revenue from the agriculture or yield from the agriculture? So D is also hypothetical. It's not observed from the field. Suppose the non-adopted farm households could have adopted. So what could have been their income, net revenue, or the production? Okay, so it's basically TT, the part of the treatment on the treated households, and TU means in part of the treatment on the untreated households. Okay, and the TH is basically transitional heterogeneity, that's basically TT minus TU. If we look at this, okay, so TT is basically 23,891. So basically the farmers have adopted, so they're getting 34,000. Basically, I'll just put the value of production per hectare. Others have not put it. Okay, I have calculated for net revenue. If you're interested, you can look at our paper, you can write to me, I can share the paper with you. So 34,257 per hectare, they're basically getting as value of production. But suppose they could not have adopted, which is hypothetical, they could have got it 10,000. So the difference they got because of the adaptation, which is basically 23,000. The non-adapted households basically is getting around 11,000 at present. Suppose he could adopt, he'll get 24,000. Okay, so it's about 12,000 benefits actually he'll get. Okay, so then basically I have done a survey is basically in the southern these states, in the southern states, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, as well as the Maharashtra, southern coastal states. So here basically I calculate the livelihood vulnerability index district wise. We have calculated the red one says that okay, vulnerability index is more than 0.4. So what I've done, I've just done a survey of around 11 vulnerable districts, around 1,274 farm households are being surveyed. Okay, and those farm households are experiencing multiple disasters, like 47% experience cyclone, and 37% experience floods, and 62% experience drought, and unexpected rainfall events experienced by the 57%. So if we see that okay, percentage of different kinds of adaptation measures farmers are undertaking, you'll see that okay, around 70% are undertaking the water management. As I told you, the water management is most of farmers are undertaking because the water scarcity regions. Okay, and soil management are the 68% because of the soil health card. Okay, and there are also other adaptation measures. So what I've done here, I've taken the many other variables, but I've just put the important variables here, and you can see that. Okay, see, I've taken, as I told you, the most of the literature have not considered a slope path and how different kind of institutions and different kinds of information provided by the government sources are influencing the adaptation measures. So you see that. See, under the institution, you see that none of them are significant, continuously significant with all the adaptation measures. Agriculture insurance are significant, have positive significant only with the disaster resilient crops. Otherwise, it was negative with other things. Okay, subsidy for the agriculture instruments, minimum support price, access to MGNRAG, access to self-help groups. Suppose you look at the information, except the agromet advisory services, which is positive for most of the cases, none of them are positive significant with all the adaptation measures. It seems that we need to think of how we can restructure these institutions, incentives, and information for the farmers to undertake the adaptation measures. Otherwise, we have been telling that, okay, the less number of farmers are undertaking the adaptation, that will also continue in future. Okay, so when you look at the 2019 NSS data, those guys have adopted the crop insurance. Okay, and how many of them having the access to insurance? Those guys have adopted the crop insurance. How many of them access to institution and information channel? You see that hardly 20% of the farmers have access to these kind of measures like Kisan Credit Card, Farmer Producer Organization, UC Vigyan Kendra, extension agents, cooperatives. Okay, it seems that so the institutions we have, we need to restructure those institutions. Okay, so we have a recent paper published in the Nature Climate Change, which is the High Impact Factor Journal. Okay, so around the researchers are involved from the South Asia and other countries. So here basically we're looking at, okay, what basically are the major barriers for the farmers to undertake the climate smart agriculture practice. So one of the major barriers in the South Asia context, weak organizational capacity, which basically I've shown in my paper, the weak organizational capacity, the institutions, and inadequate targeted incentives. Okay, so which are the basically where we're giving the incentives. And so far, we are not having the limited post-adoption follow. So once the farmer adopted, what is basically happening? Okay, whether it gives the farmers benefit or not. So our dashboard says that number of farmers adopted micro irrigation, number of farmers adopted crop insurance, number of farmers undertaken soil health card. But actually, what is happening next? Okay, whether it has any benefit or whether farmers are having an issue to use it. And then the last one you mentioned that inequities in information dissemination. So others are not getting the information. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So already, sir explained, the many aspects of the Indian agriculture and especially the climate smart agriculture, and also sir discussed beautifully about the critical review, literature review. What are the determinants taken by the different articles? As especially there was assets and income, which is majorly most of the articles have taken. Also, sir discussed in detail about the crop insurance, how the farmers are adopting the crop insurance pattern, especially the PMFBOI, and also sir mentioned how the different states are performing, and also sir discussed why they are not adopting. Definitely the students also on one question I received, I'm going to that question later, sir. And also sir discussed the state-wise, what are the different states participated, what is the current status. Though if we go through all the data and representation, only two states were there, were Andhra Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, who adopted more or less 10 to 20% of the crop insurance. Rest of the other states, they're below either below 10%, most of the states. And if we consider the which kind of farmers they are adopting, and how that can be helpful for them, and that only one thing sir mentioned, that small farmers are adopting, especially the crop diversification mostly, which is significant in the 3 different models. And sir already discussed about the adaptation of the micro irrigation, KSY, and to stabilize, the main purpose is to stabilize the groundwater level, because sir considered the data for 2015 and 2022 and discussed state-wise what is the situation and what are the institutional effects, especially ESR model, based on that endogeneity and selection bias model, and discussed about the determinants of the climate resilient agriculture. And then mentioned 2 things: institutional incentives and diffusion informations are mentioned, differentiated, different determinants in two different groups, and discussed about the how the access to agricultural insurance, subsidy for the agriculture, access to MGNREGA, training, and all these things are affecting the climate resilient agriculture. And also the adaptation of the institutional and information things, how they are adopting from all these things are already discussed in detail. So really we appreciate, and we already learned a lot from you, sir. Though we have certain questions, sir, I hope, sir, if you kindly address,
Yeah,
then
sure,
it will be very
sure.
Yeah. Who are attending from the outside, kindly could you can post your question in the chat box. And some questions are raised by the students. That one question they are asking, sir, why the farmers are not adopting the crop insurances, because as this is not a good sign, because if the farmers adopt it, it will be beneficial for them. But why they are not choosing, and why only 2 states are performing well, and why the rest are not opting? This is the question from one student, master student, sir.
Okay, so let me answer that. Okay, I have not mentioned that I have published a paper in 2022 in the Progress in Disaster Science, where basically we have reviewed all the articles so far published. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
audible,
so far published in India with respect to crop insurance adoption, exactly the same question we have asked. So why farmers are not insuring crops? Okay, so basically the answer we got, the basis risk is the major reason. Okay, basis risk is the major reason, and as long as you're not addressing that basis risk, I don't think farmers are. So far, we're talking about the information failure, other things are there, income, and this, although there's a huge subsidy, so why the farmers are not. So basis risk is the major reason. As long as we're not addressing that basis risk, that's the main reason. And so far, we have less literature, which is basically when a large literature talking following the neoclassical economics model of the household characteristics and looking at, okay, what basically influence the adoption behavior. But we are so far less investigation on the behavioral economics side of it. Okay, how different kinds of behavior, I mentioned various behavioral biases which could possibly influence the farmer's adaptive behavior. We need to address that.
Yeah, sir, another thing, as you mentioned that up to 4th quartile, there are the input-output ratio that you mentioned in a graph. So, basically, is it reflecting that this is not beneficial for the farmers, which is basically, leading to, not to choose the crop diversification and all these things, as you mentioned?
So basically, it's the 4th quartile. You see that we have compared the input expenditure with the output. You'll see that first and second quartile or third quartile is mostly the smallholder farmers. Okay, you'll see that hardly any difference. Hardly any difference. Is basically questioning the possibility of doubling the farmer's income, because they're telling, okay, we can double the farmer's income, but the issue is that hardly they get benefit from the agriculture. There's hardly any difference between their input expenditure and output value. Only the guys in the 4th quartile, mostly the medium and large farmers, so they are actually getting some difference with their input and output expenditure and output value. Okay, and you see the next figure, the 10th decile is that, okay, the guys in the 10th decile, so their ratio of output input is 2. Otherwise, most of them are less than 2, and up to 5, it is close to 1 or less than 1. Means actually they are in the loser side. Okay, they're in the loser side. They're not at least covering their output value. Okay, at least covering, they're not actually covering their input expenditure.
Yeah, sir, one question from Farana. This is our MA 3rd semester student. She's asking, can we state that the standardized approach of the government schemes and initiative affect the adaptation? Can this be made more effective through a tailored approach?
Tailored, see, there is nothing called a scaling of adaptation measures, like suppose one adaptation measures works in Karnataka, it doesn't mean that it will work in the northeastern part of India. Okay, so it should be geography-based, agroclimatic zone-based adaptation measures. We need to think of that, okay, how we need a large number of studies. I was also part of the high map report of the CMOD. So basically the adaptation chapter. So that time we have seen that in the northeastern part of India, we have hardly any studies. Okay, we don't know that, okay, what basically farmers are doing, okay, with respect to the climate change. Okay, and if you similarly, so we need to have a agroclimatic zone wise adaptation measures. Some adaptation measures works well in Karnataka, some will works well in Andhra Pradesh, and same thing will not work in basically northeastern part of India. So it's difficult to scale up the adaptation measures. Okay, one is working here, you can scale up in other parts of India. Like if you look at the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. Okay, you see that where basically adoption is happening, the micro irrigation. When I'm looking at Andhra Pradesh, so you will see that more than 60% adoption is from the Rayalaseema region. Okay, where the groundwater is again the scarcity, not from the coastal part of, not the coastal Andhra. Coastal Andhra will be 20 to 30%. So micro irrigation is not option in the coastal Andhra because they are not in the water scarcity region. The water scarcity region is basically the Rayalaseema, where basically I'm sitting. So there the adoption is more. Okay, so we have to be geography and agroclimatic zone basis adaptation measures that will be actually beneficial.
Yeah, fine. So Rahul sir, is there any questions students are, I think they are interested to ask? Yeah. Yeah, you can ask from there. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. So my question is, what are incremental and transformative adaptive practices can implemented after considering the seasonal variation in India?
Okay. As I mentioned to you that, okay, there's an incremental, systemic, and transformative. So different kinds of adaptation measures, we have distributed them as incremental. So incremental is basically just short-term adaptation measures, and it gives you less benefit. And see, we need to look at the possibility of maladaptation. Some adaptation could lead to maladaptation. Okay, so that basically we look at. See, one example I can tell you, the micro irrigation, so which we call as the water saving technologies. Okay, now the studies are found, including my own study in Gujarat. We tell that, okay, it doesn't save water. We are looking at the farm level saving. We are not looking at the source, basically where we drink the water. Source means the deep borewell. Basically, these micro irrigation technologies are promoted in the groundwater-based irrigation areas. And the groundwater basically extracted from the borewells. So if you look at how much water extracted from the borewell, so that guy is extracting the same amount of water which is basically extracting before the micro irrigation. Given the huge amount of land is unirrigated, and he can sell the water to the neighborhood farmers. The potential saving of water could be sold to it. So that's why some of the incremental and transformative adaptation measures could lead to maladaptation. Could lead incremental and systemic could lead to maladaptation. Okay, so we divide the varieties of adaptation like changing of planting time. Okay, based on the rainfall. Earlier they used to plant June, mid of June, we used to plant our crops. Now basically delayed to July. Okay, it depends on which time basically we are getting the rainfall. Okay, and the choice of crops, which kind of crop you choose. Okay, for cultivation. Okay, those are the incremental. Transformative is a complete diversification of the agriculture system. Okay, suppose you're doing the complete diversification of the agriculture system, that's basically a transform, which need a huge amount of investment, and it's not individual based. It's basically a group based and involves both the multi-stakeholders and the government. Not audible.
Yeah, okay, fine, sir. Sir, one more question from our student. What will be the, policy prescription from your end, which can, will be helpful for growing for the Indian economy and especially for the Indian agriculture, and especially if we come to the specific topic, the climate resilient agriculture. So what are the 2-3 possible policies which will be very much helpful, if you kindly address?
Yeah, so actually think that one thing, we need to have information first thing, which basically we're lacking. So, so our the NSA show should include the climate smart agriculture module in the next round of farmer household survey, which they may bring sometime 2025 or 26, so that we'll have a large information about what the farmers are doing with respect to climate change. Once we have information, we can think, okay, where is the lacuna? At present, we don't have information. And second thing that we need to restructure, as I told you, that weak organizational capacity. Okay, not only India, but across the countries in the South Asia. Okay, weak organizational capacities which can help the farmers to adopt the crop like adopt various kind of climate smart agriculture practices. And third, incentives. Okay, see what is happening here. We are talking about the organic farming. Okay, so you might be
Yes.
knowing that there's a Paramparagat scheme program under the for the organic farming. We have compared that. When you're putting 1,000 rupees on the Paramparagat, you are putting 1 million. When you put $100 in the Paramparagat scheme, you are putting $1 million in the chemical fertilizer scheme, subsidizing the chemical fertilizer.
Yes.
Okay, so how this organic farming will take up?
Yes.
It's just putting $100. While you put $100 here, we are putting $1 million there. So this program will not take up. So we need to think of these institutions and incentive mechanisms. And the most thing that post-adoption follow, we are happy with the dashboard, the number of farmers adopted. We are not following that, okay, what is happening next? You have to see that, okay, how many farmers are using micro irrigation. We have the information that, okay, these many number of farmers have adopted the micro irrigation. How many of them using at present? So this post-adoption follow-up is not there. Like insurance. Okay, these men have insured, but how many of them have actually got their claim? The claim settlement is the basis risk. That's the major issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. So now I'm okay. One more question. Okay, sir. It's kindly the last question.
Yeah.
One of our alumni, he is doing his PhD. He's from foreign student. He is doing his PhD from Bangalore University. He is our alumni. He asked one question. He asked one question that, good evening, sir. This is Ne. My questions are: do the farmers themselves aware of climate smart agriculture? If no, how can they be advocate? And how effective are existing government programs in CSA adaptation among small and marginal farmers? And is there any certain crops more suited to CSA techniques?
See, I'll ask the first question that, okay, the farmers, okay, they are, of course, see, there is a kind of integration of the indigenous knowledge and with the adaptation measures. We need to think of rather than just like imposing on them, okay, you should adopt this. We should have integration of both the things, indigenous knowledge and science. So that's why I told you, we need to think of the agroclimatic zone by adaptation measures. Of course, the farmers see who is actually facing the risk, farmers, and they know how to cope it. They have been there changing practices. They are surviving because they're changing the practices. If they don't change the practices, they have to out of the market. They can't survive. So they are surviving. They're doing something. So, but think that, okay, when you say that, okay, these particular things will improve your outcome, it has to be disseminated properly. Otherwise, farmers are not going to take it. Okay, and I told you one of my survey to the around 1,200 farmers. So existing was just kind of failure of the existing incentive and information mechanisms. Okay, which is not basically not helping the farmers or to undertake various kind of climate smart agriculture practices. We need to restructure it. So that's the major reason weak organizational capacity we have.
Fine, sir. Thank you. So I'd like to request Professor Ramesh to kindly deliver the vote of thanks. Kindly, sir, take the chance. Ramesh, sir.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Economics, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone present here for making today's distinguished lecture series on macroeconomics, trade, and finance a success. First and foremost, I would like to express our deep appreciation to Professor Chandra Sekhar Bahinipati, Associate Professor at IIT Tirupati, for delivering an insightful and thought-provoking lecture on climate-smart agriculture, adaptation, and farmers' well-being, empirical evidence from India. Your expertise and analysis have greatly enriched our understanding of this critical issue, and we are truly grateful for your valuable time and contribution. A sincere thanks to our chair, Professor Jitendra Kumar Mishra, Registrar of JAIN deemed to be University, for his motivation and encouragement. A sincere thanks to our Dr. Thaya Afzal, a Senior Academic Coordinator, School of Humanities and Social Sciences, for your guidance and constant support in making this event possible. A special acknowledgement goes to Dr. Shushoban Maiti, Program Coordinator, for organizing this enlightening lecture series and ensuring its success. Your hard work and dedication have been instrumental in bringing together today's program. To the faculty members of the Department of Economics, School of Humanities and Social Sciences, thank you for your commitment and effort in organizing this lecture series, ensuring the smooth execution of today's event. Lastly, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the students of the Department of Economics for your enthusiasm and participation, which made today's discussion even more dynamic and meaningful. And finally, a big thank you to the admin staff of the department for their behind the scenes work, making sure everything ran smoothly. Your hard work is truly appreciated by all of us. Once again, thank you all for being a part of this event, and we look forward to many more such enlightening sessions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So
sir.
I can
Thank
leave
you.
now? I can
Yes,
leave?
sir. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Fine,
much.
sir.
sir.
Yes. Yeah.
And please thank the alumni also for having joined us today. So thank you for staying connected and joining me. Thank you so much. I can identify you. If there are others, thank you all. Stay connected. Thank you so much.